So very frequently these days, I'm being asked, ASpec, playing tall, is that still possible in 2.2? I would like to say so, yes. However, it needs to be rather specific. And as you can see at the game right now, this is the Tall Boys, and they spawn on a Gaia world. That should already give away a couple of indications of what this is leaning towards. But first, we need to specify what playing tall means. As of 2.2, the way the additional costs for technology, growth, and as well as traditions, the way it's calculated is very different than before. Now it's being linked to a new system called Empire Administrative Capacity. If you go over that administrative capacity, the cost of getting new technologies, traditions, campaigns, leader upkeep, and leader costs will go up pretty much exponentially. Well, not so much exponentially, it's a linear increase, but still you get the general idea. And this can get out of control really quickly. It's very easy to go super wide, go well over your administrative cap, and basically are forced to have a very large amount of planets to keep up with the new costs. And as playing tall, we don't want that. As playing tall, we want to stay below that administrative cost. Now this means that we will need to maximize the amount of admin cap that we can get. Now there's a couple of fiddly ways that we can do that, and the Tall Boys are specializing just to get that done. Let's take a look at what the Tall Boys are and how they work. First of all, we're going to need to take a look at our civics and then our ethics. So let's take a look at our government. The Tall Boys are specialized as the following. The Tall Boys in this particular case are A, pacifist. Now, there's two options here. Administrative capacity for pacifist does increase by 10. If you go fanatic, however, you will get an administrative capacity plus 20 with a stability bonus of 10%. So why have I not gone fanatic pacifist in this particular scenario? And there's a good reason for that. Well, first of all, we want to make sure that we are xenophiles. This is very important in the long run. Why? Because with this particular playthrough, we are going to play on a life-seeded planet. We want to make as many migration deals as possible. Because we're playing on a Gaia world through the life-seeded mode means that we can attract basically any alien empire or any alien pops for free, because pops are power in this game. If you have a Gaia world, it'll be extremely easy to attract new pops, and that's where the Xenophile comes in. Then we've gone a little bit on the Spiritualist side. Why Spiritualist? Because of the monthly unity modifier, plus 10%, and the reduction in edict costs, because influence once again can bottleneck us super heavily, and we want to make sure that we have the right type of edicts to increase our monthly unity income, our monthly tech income, etc. It's very important that we do this. Yes, we can get an additional 10 administrative cap by going fanatic pacifist, sure. But in this particular case, the trade-off between these two means that we will get through our tradition tree very quickly, and B, we'll be able to fill up our planet for the, at least for the, in the meantime, up relatively quickly. Now let's take a quick look at our civics. Now civics by themselves, as I've already mentioned, we are playing as a life-seeded. For those of you who've never played as life-seeded before, what that means is we will spawn with a singular tile 25 slot Gaia world. Now, why exactly do we want this? Because we're playing so tall, we want the largest possible planet available. We want to fill up that bad boy as fast as we can. The more planets we have, the more administrative cap we use. Sure, we'll use the admin cap on districts as well, but we're going to be living mostly off of the building slots, not so much the districts, although that might change in the late game. Finally, then we have agrarian ideal. Now, agrarian ideal is a fascinating little thing that you can pick. Basically, what it means is for every single district that you build that is not a housing district, you will get an additional unit of housing. Housing districts, on the other hand, will give you one less. And on top of that, all farmers will produce additional amenities. This means that we can get a planet that is super stable, super happy, super tall, and outputting resources on a gargantuan scale. Now, I can already see you ask, ASpec, there is efficient bureaucracy. With efficient bureaucracy, we can get plus 20 capacity on admin cap. That's very true. However, as soon as we get into the mid-game and we get the empire buildings and also the ability to give ourselves an additional civic, we will most definitely get efficient bureaucracy. But we don't need it at the start of the game due to the modifiers that we are going to be playing with. So let's take a quick look at our traits as well to maximize our potential for our tall boys. So, what have I picked? Well, first of all, the tall boys will only be living on this Gaia planet. And of course, that means that we can min-max that with non-adaptive because they can't live anywhere else anyway. So we may as well go for a -2 on non-adaptive because the chances of us getting a Gaia planet that is A, reasonably large enough, or B, is not a fallen empire protected world is slim to say the least. Then intelligent for that amazing tech growth. We definitely want to do that. We want to grow our tech as soon as possible. We want to out-tech everybody in the galaxy. Natural engineers. Now this may seem like an interesting choice. Why didn't I go for natural physicists or natural sociologists? I'll give you one word. Megastructures. That's right. Natural engineers will allow us to get the megastructure tech a little bit quicker by a smidgen. It's only a 15% bonus, but that 15% bonus in the late game is going to give us a speedier ability to build our megastructures and, more importantly, get the megastructure tech. Also, it will give us access to other techs as well. If you feel like, hey, I want to go down the psionic route, go for the sociology one, or society even. Or you want to get some laser weapons, go for physics. It's fine. In my particular case, I like to go for natural engineers. And finally, communal for that additional reduction in pop housing usage. Why the pop housing usage? Because A, our city districts are already underdeveloped due to us picking up agrarian ideal. And B, it means that we don't need to build any more city blocks, which gives us more districts to build with, energy, minerals, or food. And this is a combination right here will give us a lot of flexibility on our planet. And of course, we're going to throw in...
We build bridges. We don't raise them.
The pacifist, advisor voice. Of course, this may not necessarily be the best approach in your opinion. It's if you feel that there is a different way of doing this, go right ahead. But let's dive into the game and see how our first little bit runs through with playing tall, and then we're going to jump even further forward into the game to see how everything is going to set up in the mid to late game and what things are going to look like. So we have arrived. The tall boy empire is ready to unleash, and of course we're going to do all the basic stuff right at the start, such as getting a additional mining base set up over here using our 100 minerals. But first we need to select the techs that we need to get into the game. First of all, any sort of research related tech that is cheap, between 2,000 at the start at least, get it as soon as you can. It is incredibly useful, and all the other ones for us right now are not really all that interesting. So what we have right now, we've got bonuses to all of our technologies coming up. This means that we can grow faster in the mid-game. And of course, any sort of bonus to tech means that we can get bonuses later on. And there's of course other questions to ask as well. What kind of approach are we going to do for traditions? Well, this is actually a very interesting one because it's not nearly as straightforward as you would think it to be. First of all, we're going to get one slot of discovery, just one slot. We don't need the rest. What we're interested in is anomaly research speed. Why do we want anomaly research speed so badly? There's a good reason for this, and that is the following. Because we are playing tall, we want to be as efficient with finding the right places for us to colonize. We don't have that much admin cap. Because of our options, we only have 40 for now. So having only one tick of discovery means that we can very quickly identify the direction that we want to expand into. Is it going to be this constellation or is it going to be that constellation? These are very important questions. In this particular case, we probably go in this direction. Why? Because there is a cloud over here, a stellar cloud, which means that we can get minerals from space, which is a huge bonus in the early game, because that's what we can use our star bases on. So if we find, for instance, some crystals in space over here, that's great. We can expand over there. Some motes over here, expand over there. And then slowly start picking up the amount of space that we need, but never going over our empire sprawl. And this is also where the Gaia world modifier comes in. If you do not find any resources in space that you need for the late game to get your motes, to get your gases, to get your crystals, the Gaia planet has your back. Because Tallboy, in this particular case, has the following tiles available on its planet. 1 dust cavern, 1 bubbling swamp, and 1 crystalline cavern. Every single life-seeded planet starts with these, which means that it is incredibly useful to have, and you will always have some rare resources available to you in the mid-game when you're starting to actually use them, because you've been compiling these for quite some time already. Now, considering we went agrarian ideal, which means that we have multiple farms, and that basically means that we can immediately do the following. We can go to our food policy, go for a nutritional plentitude, and basically start ramping up the production of our population. If very early on in the tech tree we find ourselves with the hospital, build it as fast as you can, but if it takes like 20-30 years, don't, because the return on investment on a hospital building is very, very long, somewhere around 130 years as of most recent calculations. It's worth it in the start, in the late game, not so much. Anyway, we're talking about traditions. After we've gone for discovery, it's time to pick our next one, and it's not really straightforward what we're going to need. We're actually going to go into the expansion tree. Why the expansion tree, you ask? Well, it's actually quite easy. We want the courier network, because courier network increases our administrative capacity by 20, which means that we have more flexibility to expand efficiently in space, because we will go from 40 admin cap to 60. And then later on, with technology as well as other modifiers, including the Ascension perk that we want, which is the following. If I can quickly find it here. That would be the Imperial Prerogative, which will give us an additional admin cap. However, we can only pick it as our second option. So what we probably want to do here is get the expansion tree, then the discovery tree, then the Imperial Prerogative, and then take it from there. Your first pick, Technological Ascendancy, 1 Vision. It's probably a good idea. 1 Vision for Unity, Technological Ascendancy for that tech bonus. So what does this all translate into? Well, let's jump into the future and see how our tall boys have developed over time and see if they can actually compete with the traits that we have given them. So, these are the tall boys. About 65 years into the future, 65 years have passed. And how are the tall boys doing right now? Well, as of right now, we are at a admin cap of 90. We got Pacifist, Courier Network, and Imperial Prerogative. However, we still have not gotten the Colonial Bureaucracy and the Galactic Bureaucracy research technology, which by itself gives a total of yet another 40 admin cap that we can play with once we have researched them. And that means that we still have quite a lot of flexibility in our empire. So how have we actually developed overall? Well, the tall boys actually have a relatively large amount of space, but it's very specialized in what kind of resources we want. So in terms of strategic resources, we of course have our motes, we have our gases, we have our rare crystals. We're currently not using any of those. We also have the ability to get some living metal in various places. We even have one system that we could still colonize to get some more rare metal to gear up for our bonuses that we want for megastructural engineering in the late game. Now, this is the interesting part. I did mention early on that we want some bonuses because of diplomacy, because we're xenophile. Right next to us, this empire over here is a xenophobic isolationist. We got another one to our south, which is once again a xenophobic isolationist. However, because due to our bonuses as well as abusing the diplomatic grants modifier in the early game, as well as declaring the independency of these two states and then slowly starting to build up trust, it means that we can actually get quite a good relationship with these here empires. Did we get that migration agreement that we want with them to fill up our planets? No, not in this particular case, because this is pretty much the worst possible example of what could have happened. However, in this particular case, I got lucky. Why? Because I had some refugees coming in on our capital world. This means that we can now use these refugees to start colonizing some of these worlds that we have access to. We got a size 16 continental world, a size 14 tropical, another continental world over here, another savanna, another tomb world, which is also interesting considering Ketlings are over here. A size 19 continental world, which is probably the most interesting for us in this particular case. When it comes to our traditions, going for technological ascendancy and imperial prerogative means that we have a ton of science, and we are basically outsciencing everybody nearby because we are basically focused on getting as much unity and as much tech rolling in the early game as possible. And in addition, we are actually not really running all that bad on our fleet. We effectively have the largest fleet in the galaxy right now because our empire, specifically our capital building, is specializing in both alloys and energy because we're getting most of our minerals from space, from large deposits, which means that we have a lot of energy to buy resources with on the galactic market. And in this particular case, I lucked out and I got the galactic market, which means that we have a market fee of only 20 instead of 30, and we can basically just buy the resources that we need in case we run into problems, especially alloys for our fleets. Now, where would we want to go from here? Well, after about 60 to 100 years, you've properly established yourself within the Empire. It's time to start looking at those megastructures, but also the vassalization of our neighbors, and specifically turning them into tributaries. We kind of lucked out in this particular case because these are fanatic isolationists. So are these guys. They will never have any trade with each other. They will never be friends with each other, which means that they are basically standing alone, giving us the opportunity to subjugate them and take their resources for ourselves. Playing tall is totally possible in 2.2. It just requires a couple of very specific setups that can actually be really fun. I've had actually quite a lot of fun trying to juggle my administrative capacity around, trying to get new planets, basically trying to find out where they would go, how I would approach my empire building, and being very, very specific about what I wanted. Let's take a look at our trade routes, for instance. Our trade routes are very specifically set up around these trade systems. Sure, did I max out on them? No, I did not. But we can still do so because we still have a little bit of starbase capacity left. Playing tall, like I mentioned, is totally possible. And I highly recommend that you try to have a little bit of fun with it, because so far, I definitely have been. So as a quick recap, a life-seeded and agrarian ideal will allow you to specialize your planets in such a way that you really don't need additional housing, keeping those districts off of your admin cap. Always stay below that admin cap. Try to grow it as fast as you can. Don't go for the fanatic pacifist. Sure, it gives you plus 10 extra. But the bonuses that we're going to get from both Xenophile as well as Spiritualist even that out. Because Spiritualists, well, I like to go and have a dive into the Shroud, don't you? Then, of course, the life-seeded bonus, being able to populate your planet very quickly through migration agreements is a huge boon, and on top of that, it's a very safe approach for a tall planet, because you're going to be playing One Planet Challenge for quite some time, and in all honesty, the challenge has been very, very fun so far. But yeah, specializing, trying to get the best possible systems that you can get, even these little arms into little areas of space that normally you would just take the entire cluster with. is really good, and I'm having quite a lot of fun with it. Go try this out. I really want to see your opinions down in the comments. Would this be the specifics that you would have gone for? Are these the ethics that you would have picked? Would you have picked Consul Tiberia Conselius as your consul? I won't know. But yeah, we're going to go and wrap it up here. Until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.